1, 2, 3.
Are you ready? Well, here we go.
I'm Lisa Mitzel, and this is Condition to Win. Hey, everyone. Hello. I'm so glad you're with me today. And welcome back if you have joined me before. This past weekend was the NCAA Women's Gymnastics Regionals. What incredible competitions! Congratulations to all the teams who made it that far. Now we're heading into the NCAA National Championships in Fort Worth. The Elite Eight teams are Oklahoma, LSU, Florida, Cal Berkeley, Arkansas, Alabama, Utah, and Stanford. The pressure that these coaches and gymnasts go through to be near perfect can be all-consuming. The intense emotions, the aching desire for these young athletes to be crowned with a national championship can elicit drastic feelings of conquering the world or maybe being a failure. So today's show is entitled Fully Awake NCAA Gymnastics. I'm flying solo and digging into the systems, struggles, and young women's experiences in NCAA gymnastics. This is largely a story and a contemplation as I zoom in on the culture of the University of Utah gymnastics team, Kara Eaker's horrible experience on the team, and the new Utah State resolution that condemns abusive coaching. As a quick warning, this show touches on sensitive mental and emotional subjects, including suicide, and may be triggering. So why am I sharing this episode now? Well, the stories and events around NCAA teams are a focal point, and it's important to consider how these young women are treated on their team and how do the coaches prioritize the athletes' health and wellness. I've competed at nationals, I've coached a team at nationals, and I've been a fan at nationals. It's easy to get swept up into the excitement, the talent, great routines, and perfect scores, and then forget about the pain and the struggles that some women have gone through. Right now, I'm referring to the 4 Utah gymnasts who were on the team last year, help them win a Pac-12 championship and place third at NCAA Nationals. But they didn't have any option to return because of how they were treated. And instead, they had to transfer or retire like Kara Eaker. For those who don't know, I am part of the legacy at the University of Utah. I'm grateful for my experience. I learned many things about how to be tough and train hard to become a champion. I competed on 4 consecutive NCAA national championship teams. What was difficult, and this is common for gymnasts, is we don't know how to stop being a perfectionist or being hard on ourselves. In my experience, coaches did not have much compassion for us when we were sick or hurt. And while the training was rigorous, I did not learn to be compassionate with myself or prioritize my own self-care. We got teased about our bodies developing into women's bodies, and I developed body image issues, disordered eating. I was scared and self-critical. I don't blame anyone for these difficulties. But I hope we are changing this in today's college programs because emotional pain doesn't go away after gymnastics. Ask Jennifer Say, Dominique Dawes, or Allie Raisman. It stays with you for years. Mental health issues are not new, but they've become worse in our society and especially in the sports world. And they are at every institution in the country. Just this month of April 2024, U.S. News and World Reports states that suicide rates have doubled in 20 years among U.S. college athletes. They've doubled. It's now over 15%. I'm talking about the Utah team because I was there, I care about the student athletes, and it's simply the school that I'm closely connected to. I also believe that what happened to Kara Eaker was preventable. We can learn from this story and events. In April 2023 at NCAA Nationals, I learned of reports of verbal and emotional abuse by Tom Farden with the Utah team. I was shocked. A month later, 3 of the Utah gymnasts transferred to compete at different universities. I couldn't believe it. What was happening that was so bad that we are losing 3 of our top gymnasts? This came out of nowhere. Starting April 2023, I began a journey. I got to know Kara and in the summer, other former Utah gymnasts, and I learned about the abuse and issues on the Utah gymnastics team. Suffice it to say, it was worse than I imagined. There were several women who opened up and said they were not only suffering from anxiety and PTSD, but they also had suicidal thoughts. One gymnast was urgently admitted to the hospital. This is happening in NCAA gymnastics, and I don't want to overlook it. Let's start with Kara and her freshman year. The team environment was strict. There was yelling, degrading comments, and physical intimidation. The guidance from the team leaders was, you need to get your shit together. And Kara was struggling. She felt isolated and anxious and was instructed to see a psychologist in Utah Athletics wellness department. She went through injuries and illnesses, and Kara continued to go every week for 1.5 years to see the same psychologist for support. But the harsh treatment by the head coach went on, and the abuse became worse. She told the psychologist about the shaming, humiliation, and threats, her fear and anxiety, and how she was treated by her teammates. Despite all of it, Kara was successful. She was one of the most consistent and high-scoring performers on the Utah team. She was ranked 4th in the country on beam in 2023. And in 2 years, she earned 2 perfect 10s. She was 2-time first team All-American and hit 23 of 24 career routines. You would think she was fine, but that's what we assume. In the summer of 2023, after her sophomore year, I started to form a close relationship with Kara, and she and I talked for many hours over the course of 4 months. She shared her thoughts, feelings, and experiences when the Utah team was being investigated about Tom Farden's coaching behaviors. As I spoke with other former Utah gymnasts and Kara, stories and facts unfolded about a divided team. Kara was bullied, and fear-based coaching was the culture for a long time. It was hard to believe this was about my own college team. But this type of culture is not uncommon in sports. It is one that minimizes and dismisses the severity of personal problems and forces athletes to train and compete when they are in pain. August 28th, 2023, at the beginning of Kara's junior year, I got a text message from her. She said she was studying before practice, lost track of time, felt panicked that she was going to be late to practice. When she got there, Tom singled her out in front of the team and became so angry, blaming and shaming her, that Kara lost it, a full-on panic attack. She had met with the athlete advocate on campus who works on the university side, not in the athletic department, and told her about the abuse. Kara met with the deputy director of athletics and reported the abuse. She had reported the abuse to the psychologist numerous times, but not one university employee helped her or stopped the abuse. Not one staff member or coach related to the gymnastics team stood up for Kara and made a difference. This is NCAA gymnastics. What was happening to Kara Eaker in a top university program has happened to student athletes at other universities in other athletic departments. This is not solely a Utah problem, it's a university and NCAA problem. If you do a little research, you'll find stories like female ice hockey players at Harvard University who came forward about verbal and emotional abuse under coach Katie Stone. Women's soccer players at Indiana State University publicly accused coach Julie Hanley of years of psychological, verbal, and emotional abuse. Several women on the Colgate University women's lacrosse team spoke out publicly in an investigation about the abuse and toxic environment created by head coach Kathy Taylor. Even NCAA football players have reported verbal and emotional abuse at Ole Miss, Clemson, and other schools around the country. These athletes are not sensitive. They are some of the toughest and most talented athletes in the country. The problem seems to be that there is not a standard for healthy coach behavior in NCAA sports, and no one is listening and taking action to help the student athletes when they speak up. I'm recalling in 2018 in a different sport, track and field, a University of Utah student athlete, Lauren McCluskey, made multiple phone calls to campus police for help. She was afraid of her stalker ex-boyfriend. The university did not help her. The campus police did not come. And one day, her ex-boyfriend showed up, and she was murdered. I never met Lauren, but we share the University of Utah, and I feel that she is a far away friend, and I am deeply saddened to this day that she lost her life, and in such a horrific way. These events are preventable. Never assume that your athletes are okay. It's our job to check in with them. And when anyone is suffering, crying, quiet, and withdrawn, they shouldn't be tougher. If they are showing signs of distress, they need help. When the legal firm Hush Blackwell did the investigation at Utah about the Utah gymnastics team, and the news became public, the Deseret News reported, former student athletes say Fardin subjected them to verbal degradation and public shaming at practices and meets, isolating gymnasts from family and pressuring them to refrain from outside communication, and physical intimidation, including throwing objects in the gym and forcefully handling equipment. No one's name was mentioned. The gymnasts were anonymous. After the results of the investigation came out, and in light of the university's response and dismissing the severity of the situation, and Tom denied everything except for one hurtful comment, Kara Eaker and former Utah star Kim Tessen decided to be known and to tell their story. They posted their statements on Instagram about the abuse they experienced on the Utah gymnastics team to discredit the investigative report, to help other gymnasts to speak up, and to stop the abuse. That was October 20th, and included in Kara Eaker's statement, she officially retired from the Utah gymnastics team. She retired from the sport of gymnastics, and she withdrew from the University of Utah. I fully supported Kara in these steps, but to be honest, I was pretty sad to see this happen. Meanwhile, on social media, there was an outpouring in support for Kara and Kim for being so brave in speaking up, including some of the best gymnasts in elite and college gymnastics, like Maggie Nichols, Riley McCusker, Leanne Wong, Morgan Hurd, Courtney McGregor, Kayla DiCello, Jordan Bowers, and Audrey Davis. There was also a lot of bad mouthing on social media, even from Kara's own teammates on the Utah gymnastics team. This is not just a story. Again, this is in NCAA gymnastics, and it brings up great concern for all of the young women's mental health. A little over a week later, I visited Kara in Utah. I learned some disturbing news. In the new Dumpke addition to the Utah gymnastics facility, one of the former gymnasts' All-American plaques was torn off the wall by a group of the Utah gymnasts. The nameplate belonged to one of the women who had transferred to another school, and the team was retaliating out of anger and hate for that gymnast. While I was there, I met with one of the senior members of the Utah team for a few minutes. I brought all of my compassion And I said, if she were ever hurt, I would stand up for her too. But it was a stiff conversation. I told her I was sorry for everything that had happened. And after a couple minutes, I gently asked, referring to the gymnast who had transferred, why did you tear her All-American plate off the wall? This senior was very cold and angry and forcefully said, because she's suing us. I was taken aback. First, that was not true. Second, I was sad to see her painful emotions. The anger was so sharp. And on the other hand, how awful to tear down an important part of Utah history and something that a young woman worked so hard for and earned. To see my college team divided and torn apart, I realized everyone needs support and healing. With the staff and the whole team, these wounds go deep. It took a while for me to shake it off. I don't do well with anger, but it seems it's been part of the Utah culture. And though there is a new head coach, emotions, grudges, hate, they don't simply disappear. You have to really work at it. My heart goes out to every student athlete who feels afraid, angry, or overwhelmed. These issues are not petty. They are not simple. They are complex, and they are actually life-threatening. If a younger me went through Kara's experience, I would be scared. If it were my daughter, I wouldn't know what to do. The following is part of an essay I wrote in November 2023 after visiting Kara in Utah. What does it look like after an accomplished NCAA gymnast is forced to leave their team, university, and sport? When you looked at Kara, she was quiet. It wasn't obvious that she was suffering. She doesn't walk with a limp, a cast, or crutches. For an elite gymnast who learned to be stoic and ignore pain, and after 2 years of verbal and emotional abuse at the University of Utah, her mental injury was not visible. Unlike a bone with a stress fracture that shows up on an X-ray, Kara's pain is hidden in her brain and deep within the emotions held in her body. It's hard to comprehend that an athlete, a world champion athlete, could end up with mental trauma that has layers of anxiety and depression, panic attacks, and PTSD. In October, I witnessed it for myself up close when I went to visit her. I flew to Utah to attend my teammate Elaine Alfano's 60th birthday party and to support Kara in her healing process. Kara is now living with Elaine and is going through a transition. She goes to therapy twice a week, practices self-care, gets nurtured by Bean, her emotional support dog, and is starting to think about a new life. Though Kara is struggling with the after effects of abuse, she is not hiding nor willing to step away quietly. She is standing up to help others who've experienced abuse and create positive change at the university level. This will be challenging. The abuse at Utah inhibited Kara's ability to think clearly, feel safe, and be able to learn and feel secure. In contrast to that, every student athlete on a college team has the right to be educated and trained in a safe, positive, and supportive environment. The power over fear tactics and toxicity on the Utah team stripped away Kara's rights as a student athlete. In fact, it took away her human right to a learning environment that is free of aggression, violent behavior, or anything which could cause a reasonable person to fear for their safety. Now, with Kara's retirement, her life has drastically changed in a minute. Without gymnastics or school, she listens to her therapist and the supportive people around her. She is taking time to separate herself from the verbal assaults she endured and allow her mind and body to have the space to process what happened to her. Her emotions come and go. I was there for 3.5 days and Kara slept. She slept a lot. In the mornings, I got up, ate, got on a computer, and the hours went by with no sign or sound from Kara. I hesitated to wake her. This is her own healing process, and she needs to go through it. No one can tell her how to heal or how long it will take. As Elaine and I spent time in the house, Kara needed to be alone in her room and simply sleep. After 2 p.m., I gently knocked on Kara's door. I observed her waking, opening her eyes, seeing me, wondering, oh, okay, I'm waking up. Do I have to? Can I sleep longer? The slow movement, the quiet heaviness in the room. This place is where she goes to curl up and seek safety in her mind and body. She responds to my presence in the room. She said, I want to go back to sleep. I said, I know, but let's get something to eat. You need good nutrition, and let's go for a short walk in nature. And though she acknowledges me, it is hard for her to get up. I leave the room and check on her 10 minutes later. She was slowly on her way to come to the kitchen and eat. Love, patience, and belief that she will overcome this inner pain and despair are required from all of us who surround her and support her. When she finally entered the kitchen, I felt her energy drift in momentarily. She ate a little food, then she would slip back into her own space. The depression and anxiety transfixed her mind and body. For Kara, each day is measured, releasing tension, anxiety, and expectations. She is at a new beginning that has no answers. She didn't plan this life change, but Kara is adamant and has a mission. She is standing up for the athlete's human right for kind, respectful communication in sports and the human right for mental wellness while training at a high level. If you are a college coach or want to be a college coach, I hope and pray you take this at full face value, educate yourself, and practice a lot of compassion and mindfulness and teach it to your gymnasts. For parents and recruits, I think you should have a prepared list of questions about athlete wellness and self-care, how the coach and team practice positive conflict resolution, and if they have an athlete representative or advocate on the university side that is not overseen by the athletic department. That can be very helpful. After the Hush Blackwell results, subsequent calls were made to the NCAA to report the abuse at the University of Utah, but the NCAA did nothing. Safe Sports stated that they only had jurisdiction over Olympic sports. NCAA sports were not in their jurisdiction, so they could not and would not investigate. There is no reliable oversight on verbal and emotional abuse in college sports. Attorneys have been fighting for student athletes, but there is not a law yet that defines and states the abuse is illegal. The good news is Kara Eaker and Kim Tessen have been tackling that. They were at the Utah State Legislative meeting in February this year of 2024. They inspired and presented facts to help pass a joint Utah State resolution condemning abusive coaching at schools and institutions in the state of Utah. I was going to just leave the link for you, but the words in this resolution are so powerful, I'm going to share it. This resolution condemns abusive coaching practices in Utah schools. This resolution recognizes a power imbalance between a coach and student athletes, condemns abusive coaching practices from coaches, and calls on Utah schools to provide safe and supportive environments for student athletes. Be it resolved by the legislature of the state of Utah, whereas coaches are responsible for supporting and protecting their student athletes and treating them with dignity. Whereas there is a power imbalance between coaches and student athletes in which athletes do not have a significant voice. Whereas research shows that people and children perform better in positive, safe, encouraging, and supportive environments. Whereas throwing objects, using obscene language, name-calling, threatening to revoke athletic scholarships, supporting and encouraging eating disorders, and other actions can constitute abuse. Whereas physical, verbal, and emotional abuse degrades student athletes, diminishes student athletes' interest in sports, damages self-esteem, harms mental health, and impacts academic performance. And whereas student athletes fear retaliation and repercussions from speaking out against abusive practices from coaches. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the legislature of the state of Utah recognizes the importance of protecting student athletes and condemns abusive coaching practices in Utah schools. Be it further resolved that the legislation encourages Utah schools to create positive environments for student athletes by penalizing abusive coaching practices in school sports. And be it further resolved that the legislature encourages school sports teams to incorporate social emotional learning practices to support healthy relationships and mindsets. For any gymnast, parent, or coach who witnesses or experiences this type of behavior, document it and get help. For club gymnasts, report it to Safe Sport to create a record. There are many people fighting for healthy coaching. Reach out to me if you don't know what to do. Members of every college team, you should feel open and positive support for any mental health issues that you have been experiencing. No one should be saying you need to be tougher or pressure you in any way. You should feel good on a team, not anxious or scared. In your community, be proactive, speak up for transparent reporting, more coach education, and athlete safety officers. Start weekly group mindfulness practices, even online, and teach education in how to spot abusive behavior. Do you think any of this would help? Let me know. Talking about mental health issues in NCAA gymnastics is vital, but it often takes stepping out of your life as a coach, a parent, or a gymnast to be able to see more clearly your own thoughts and behavior, how your words sound in the real world, and how some athletes are not sensitive. They are actually human. If you need help or want education, check out endabusivecoaching.org and spotaspider.com. I'll put those in the show notes. My hope is that we learn as a community to practice mindfulness, and I pray that we can be more present with young athletes, less critical, and connect with compassion when young gymnasts are hurting and need it most. On a final note, Kara Eaker is doing better. We spoke recently, and she gave me permission to share some of her story. I don't know everything, but I do know that to create change, it takes an army of voices. And that's why I'm talking about this today, to encourage you to ask uncomfortable questions and to please speak up. Every child is important, and it's your opportunity to help keep kids safe. Well, that's the show. I'm Lisa Mitzel. I'm honored you chose to listen in. Check the show notes for information. Share your thoughts in the comments. Give us a positive rating if you enjoyed it, and please subscribe. Okay, my friends, this is your journey to grow and learn and guide yourself to your own transformation. I am sending you good vibes, deep breaths, and peace.